Ramsey, one of the best, most talented defensive players in the NFL today. One of the youngest as well. A young stud who's a cornerstone of a defense and a franchise has been traded from the Jacksonville Jags to the LA Rams. The Rams have acquired Jalen Ramsey for 2 first-round picks. A first-round pick in 2020, a first-round pick in 2021, and another 4th-round pick. So the Jacksonville Jags get 2 firsts, which is what they wanted, and a 4th-round pick, which maybe another team was putting 2 firsts for Jalen Ramsey. They upped it to 2 firsts and a 4th. The Rams get their guy. They just traded Marcus Peters. So this kind of all makes sense. In that Marcus Peters breakdown, I was saying, I don't know really, why are they trading Marcus Peters? Is it because they really think he's overrated? They don't think he's that talented? It does, leave a big gap in their secondary. Who's going to replace him? Well, not only do they replace Marcus Peters, but they get a heck of a lot better in the secondary. This completely changes the outlook of the Rams defensively. It completely changes the outlook of the Rams secondary, what they can do with their defense, the type of defenses they can play, the style of defense they can play. So now the Rams have arguably the best player in the front 7 in the league and arguably the best player in the secondary in the league for at least the next 5 years. So Aaron Donald on the D-line, Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. This is going to be something interesting. This is going to be a lot of fun. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe, guys, if you haven't already, to the Bottom Line View. And comment your opinion. If you're here with me live right now, comment right now. What do you think of this trade? Who do you think won this trade? Because the Jags got a big haul. It wasn't just the Rams getting Jalen Ramsey, but they got a big haul for Jalen Ramsey. So do you believe the picks were more or worth more than a corner like Jalen Ramsey? Or do you think Jalen Ramsey outweighs any picks you could have gotten for him? Let me know in the comment section, whether that's live or after the fact. I want to hear from you guys. Jalen Ramsey. All right, guys. This is crazy. I didn't expect this to happen, honestly. I didn't actually expect Jalen Ramsey to get traded. There was all this talk of him getting traded, but I didn't actually think that anybody was going to go and trade for him, considering that he is kind of known a little bit as a drama queen a little bit. He is kind of known to stir the pot with his coaches, and he's kind of a big personality to take on. But obviously the LA Rams have never been shy of personalities, whether that was Marcus Peters or Aqib Talib or bringing in Ndamukong Suh in the past, Clay Matthews. I mean, a lot of big personalities just in the last few years have been on the LA Rams. And they bring in another one here with Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, they've been dissatisfied with how their secondary has played this season. It's not been good. It's been below average at the very least. If not, it's been in the bottom 5, I would say, this year. They've given up way too many big plays, way too many plays where you're scratching your head saying, what was the corner doing there? Like, what were they trying to accomplish here? Now Wade Phillips, this is interesting because he gets to play more of a style of defense that he wants to play. Remember back in Denver when in 2015, Wade Phillips was coaching one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen? Well, what they did that season a lot was they played a lot of man-to-man coverage, which is something that is becoming very common in the NFL today. Is defensively, the best defenses in the league are playing a lot of man-to-man coverage. The Patriots play a lot of man-to-man coverage. We've seen that a lot of teams have adjusted their game plans to playing against, offenses with very, high passing attacks, like the Chiefs, for example. Teams to play against the Chiefs need to play man because when you have a great play caller like an Andy Reid or some of these great play callers in the league like Kyle Shanahan for the Rams, for example, or, Sean Payton in the NFC, Sean McVay, McDaniels. You need to play man, because what man does is it mostly takes away that creativity where an offensive play caller can just draw up a cajillion plays to beat cover 2 or cover 3 or quarters or whatever zone defense you can throw at a quarterback. If you have an experienced quarterback, if you have a good play caller, you can beat zone. But when you play man, when you play a lot of man, it basically says your guy versus my guy. Maybe you can drop a pick play here or, a nice rub concept here and there, but it's more difficult. It's more on your player versus that player. It's more on physicality at the line, getting a good release at the line, and just one-on-one route running versus coverage. And what the Rams are now going to be able to do, despite the loss of Aqib Talib, he's on IR, is with Nikel Roby-Coleman, who's a good man-to-man slot corner, who's a lot like, let's say, Chris Harris from the Broncos. Maybe not as good as Chris Harris was, but still a good slot corner. And then a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who let's say is the Aqib Talib in this instance. You now have two corners who are very good in man situations, who are able to play one-on-one. And Ramsey is going to be able to take away a lot of number one receivers. And we've seen the statistics where Jalen Ramsey has shut down a lot of the league's best players. A lot of quarterbacks are scared to throw in his direction. I would say the only two corners in the game right now who are that good are Stephon Gilmore and Jalen Ramsey. These two guys are at a different level in the league, and it's definitely, you should pay the money to get these guys because they change a defense. I have said recently that I think the best thing you can have on a defense is a shutdown corner, because that allows you to do so many different things with the creativity of your pass rush, with the rest of your coverage. Because if you have, look at let us just use the Patriots as an example. With them having Stephon Gilmore on one side, they can take away whether that's the second best receiver or the best receiver, and then they can scheme the other side of the field to play whatever coverage. Belichick is creative in that way, and then they're able to rush and use twists and different types of blitzes to get after the quarterback. Wade Phillips is the same kind of defensive coach, where he is now with this shutdown corner, can stick Ramsey on the number 1, or he can stick Ramsey on the number 2 and then double the number 1, and then he can do creative things up front where it's not always on Aaron Donald to get the pass rush by himself. Now you can send more creative blitzes. You can just do so many different things, and the versatility of your defense opens up. And it just allows your defense to be so much better. And that's, in my opinion, the shutdown corner is the best thing you can have on a defense. Really, it's the best thing you can have on a defense in today's game, because we've seen that you can do, you now have that versatility like I was speaking of, but it's just defenses nowadays it's becoming a trend. I've said it over and over and over again, where you're building from the back of your defense to the front of your defense. It used to be where you wanted that pass rusher, you wanted to build your defensive line, and that's still warranted, and it still is a thing to do so. But if you build from your secondary to your front, it's just as valuable in today's game. So I love this trade from the Rams' perspective. I also like this trade from the Jags' perspective, because look, he wasn't getting along with Marrone. He wasn't getting along with this team. He was unhappy. And to get, as my dogs go nuts in the background, to get 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick is extremely valuable for any player in today's NFL, especially when those picks, specifically this season, I still don't know if Ramsey is good enough to completely change the trajectory of the Rams this year, because they're in a division with the 49ers, they're in a division with the Seahawks, and these two teams are likely to make the playoffs. That means that the Rams are probably going to have to be the 6th seed. If they could beat the Seahawks out, looks like for the 5th seed, then maybe, but they're already a team that is 3-3, and they're going to have to be fighting an uphill battle to make the playoffs this year. So when you're looking at that from that perspective for the Jags, they're getting a pick that's likely going to be in the 20s, maybe even in the high teens. So this year's pick, I think this move from the Rams' perspective was more about next year. It was more about building a team for next year. That's my opinion on it. I feel like, yeah, will Ramsey help them now? Yes. Could Ramsey be enough to make them a playoff team? Definitely. But what this does is it sets up the team next year to already have a secondary where they can look at it with Talib back in the fold, having Ramsey and Roby Coleman, and then you have Johnson at safety. Maybe you try to bring back Eric Weddle for one more year. You have a secondary where you can go for the Super Bowl. And you know that you have Aaron Donald. You have a few underrated linebackers like Littleton. You have a defense that's championship ready. I still think, though, the Rams do have flaws offensively. They have flaws on their offensive line, which is very weak this year. Todd Gurley's not the same running back. Malcolm Brown isn't Todd Gurley of last year. They need to figure that out offensively if they want to get to the playoffs. This move certainly helps, but they still do have those flaws where I still question whether they'll be able to actually make it this year. So that's why I'm looking at next year, where if the Rams are able to build their offensive lineup, if they're able to get Gurley healthier, this is a team that definitely could win the Super Bowl within the next 3 seasons with Jalen Ramsey here. So that's why I believe that the 2 first-round picks are definitely worth it. Now, there's some that might say Jalen Ramsey is overrated, and I've already seen some of the comments, which I'll get to at the end of this video, guys. I'm trying to give you my full analysis before the comments. But Jalen Ramsey, to me, has always been misplaced, miscast within the Jaguars defense. The Jags defense has primarily been a defense that has been Seattle scheme driven. For those of you that don't know, the Seattle scheme has been a cover 3 press bail scheme, which means that for the corner, you are basically playing at the line of scrimmage, playing press, and then you're backing up with your face facing the quarterback, and you're going into a deep zone. Okay? So if you ever play Madden, you'll see the play cover 3 press. That's pretty much what Jalen Ramsey has been asked to do in real life for the Jags for a majority of the time. So now what Jalen Ramsey is going to be able to do is he's going to change the scheme. So he is good in zone. We know he's good in zone. But where Jalen Ramsey's been miscast is he's never really truly been used as a shutdown man-to-man corner, which is now what he is going to be used most likely with the Rams, which I'm very intrigued by. Because if you watch the Rams over the past couple of seasons, they've wanted to play man. They just haven't been able to the most success. If you watch them in the Super Bowl, they played a lot of man because they were able to, because the Patriots didn't have any receivers outside of Edelman, and Edelman burnt them when in man. But now that they have Jalen Ramsey, they can play more man coverage because Marcus Peters didn't turn into the guy that they wanted him to, so they shipped him off. He's a zone corner more so than a man corner, so they shipped him off. Roby Coleman, that fits his skill set more to be a man corner. So to me, this overall is just a really good move by a team that knows that they're in contention for the next 4 to 5 seasons. Sean McVay is a head coach that I think can, even with a lackluster talent on their team, can make them a decent team. And I think from a Jags perspective, again, I like the trade because Jalen Ramsey was unhappy. You get 2 first-round picks, plus you get the 4th, which was more than you were even asking for openly. And, you know, you're going to be able to get rid of Ramsey, get rid of a guy that was potentially going to sign a contract that was going to be big, that was going to hold you back, that you aren't in Super Bowl contention right now, so you might as well add a couple first round picks to that conversation, rebuild your team, and you're also in a dilemma where you have Nick Foles on your basically on the table to be paid, but you have Minshew who might be your actual starting quarterback down the road, so you have to decide what to do. Do you trade Nick Foles now? You traded Jalen Ramsey, so you're basically saying we're not in Super Bowl contention right now. we're trying to rebuild somewhat. We have those 2 first-round picks to going forward. Do we try to surround Minshew with a great team? We try and make that defense again? Do we try and add some talent offensively? Like, there's so many different things now that the Jags can do with these 2 first-round picks. So I really like it from both perspectives because both teams are going in different directions. Both teams are heading the opposite way. Even though the Rams aren't playing great right now, who knows if they could turn that around this season? And I do know that if they get a full offseason behind this team, they definitely can turn it around. Plus, the Rams are a team that have signed Jared Goff. So that means that they need to win. I mean, Jared Goff is now a paid man at quarterback. So they have committed fully to Jared Goff. So you need to surround the best possible team that you can around this franchise guy if you believe him to be that person or that quarterback. So that is pretty much the full analysis I can give for the most part. I'm now going to take your questions and your comments, and I'll riff off that. If you guys haven't already, Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're just viewing me live, or if you're viewing me after the fact. Definitely subscribe to the channel as I do a lot of breakdowns of trades, and the trade deadline's about to be crazy as we've already seen 2 awesome trades. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, guys, let's look at these comments. Let's start off with Graham, who says, "Woo, baby, what a trade. Rams probably traded Peters away knowing he was a decline ahead of him and wanted to free up cap to make Ramsey the highest paid corner in the league." Ramsey is definitely going to be the highest paid corner in the league. I think Ramsey is like 25. I'm just think maybe he's 24. I don't know exactly. As Ian Rappaport just tweets that the trade is official. So there you go. Jalen Ramsey is officially a Ram. If you haven't already, get in that comment section. Limitless says, "Even though I haven't seen one of your videos before, I still subscribe." Thank you. I appreciate that. Kathleen says, "Let's go." Let's go, Kathleen. DeSports Goat says, "I don't think y'all understand the Rams have 2 of the top 10 defensive players in the league." Definitely. If Ramsey, I don't think Ramsey's the best corner, but I would still say that Ramsey is the second best corner. And especially when you're looking at it from an age perspective, Ramsey is definitely one of the top 10 defensive, franchise players that you want on your team. So he's definitely in that conversation. Couple people saying major upgrade, boom. Joe says, "Have fun with that." Guy basically saying that, Jags don't want him anymore. So some Jags fans might be happy because, that personality of Jalen Ramsey was a lot to handle. But I'm sure that LA, that's the perfect location for Jalen Ramsey. And by the way, guys, this is a great trade for the NFL. I mean, this is a great trade for the NFL because you have a personality like Jalen Ramsey, who's one of the biggest on defense in the league. And now you have him in LA, which is awesome. And YouTube just scrolled down all my comments. So if I missed your comments, be sure to re-comment or restate the question in the comments because YouTube just updated the chat because there's a lot of comments. I appreciate you guys for being here live. Trill says, "Who did the Jags get?" They got 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick. If you're just wondering, that information is all in the comments as well. Ramsey, can he pass block or can he run block? Not that I know of, but like I said, this is probably good for the future. For the future. Elena's dad, who's a big Jags fan, I'm intrigued to hear from them. Jags won the trade. There you go. Diamond says, "Rams do not suck. We are dealing with injuries." Yeah, they're dealing with injuries, but I still feel like, they just put 2 people on the IR. So that's why I felt like the Peters trade was making sense because this was a team that, not necessarily sure that they were going all in this year. But again, like I said, I don't necessarily think that this trade is all for this year. It's more for the next few years than it is just for this season. What else here? Ronald says, haven't seen any particulars, but I applaud their aggressiveness like the O-line trade as well. O-line trade. Was there an O-line trade? Oh, yeah, there was a trade for, I'm not exactly sure who, but I did see that. If you guys could state that trade in the comments, just so to remind me, let me know, because I did see that trade. I just forget who it was for, but that definitely helps their offensive line for sure. Diamond says we have a linebacker and Ramsey. Yeah, Kenny Young as well. I talked about that trade in another video, so go check out that. But I do think that Kenny Young at least helps the depth of their linebacking group. Atlanta fan says, how are they building a team for next year if they lost their draft picks? You don't need draft picks to build a team for next year. You can add through free agency as well. And honestly, I have always been one to say that draft picks are a little bit overrated. Yes, you do get players at a good price, but you also don't know what that player is. I'd rather know that I have a shutdown corner in Jalen Ramsey than be trying to replace him with a pick and then trying to add another player when I don't necessarily know if those players are going to be great or not. Now, there's the other side of picks, which fans like to look at and say, they could be awesome, but we don't necessarily know they're going to be awesome, which is what the Rams strategy has been. They've traded a first-round pick for Brandon Cooks. They traded for Marcus Peters. They've done this already numerous times. They've traded a lot of picks for a lot of players over just the last few years. So this has obviously been their thing, to go after players that are proven, to go after great talents and try and fit them on their team, other than just trying to draft them. That's been kind of their thing. Jamie says, no haters. Here the Niners already whooped the Rams and will do it again. So Niners fans, they're not scared of Ramsey. Andrew says, this is dope. I don't know what that says. Taking Marcus Peters, Jalen Ramsey, they are the GOAT team. I think they're going to the NFC Championship. There you go. There's a prediction by Andrew, NFC Championship. What else here? Who did the Jags get for Ramsey? I already left that. Hot Take Hockey says this is insane. What's going on, John? Mango says Jags could be nice in the next few years, which is what they're hoping. Elena's dad says Jags building for the future, baby. And is that future going to be built through Minshew is the question. Bob says, thank you, Rams, for ensuring the 49ers atop the division for years to come. Interesting. So you don't think that Jalen Ramsey is going to help the Rams win. That's an interesting thing. Rams about to be a good team, says Joshua. Does Ramsey play franchise running back, says No Saint. No, he does not play running back. Andrew says, now OBJ is going to start kicking up a fuss to be traded to the coast. 49ers are his choice. I would love Odell to go to the 49ers. That would be awesome. And the 49ers, I will say, do need a receiver. EvDog says, who's winning the Super Bowl? If I had to pick right now with a gun to my head, it would be the New England Patriots. All teams are dealing with injuries, says No Saint. Yep, you're right. Saints, Patriots, 49ers, all those teams are doing well. They're all dealing with injuries. But the difference is all those teams have depth. All those teams' coaching is making up for it. They still need major O-line help, says Corey. I definitely agree with that. That's why I'm saying I don't know if they're a playoff team right now, even with Ramsey on their team. But this move, like I said, is for the next 5 years. It's not for this year by itself. I still feel like the Rams, yes, could they be in contention for the playoffs? Definitely. I've said it already. But they need to fix that offensive line. I don't quite believe in their running back situation right now. And, you know, because of that offensive line, Jared Goff is not playing at an elite level. And their defense Still, defensive line is still a little shaky in the depth department. I still think they need to fix a couple things. But now with Ramsey, this allows so much more for their defense and their versatility defensively for Wade Phillips. So I think this comes down to the coaching that Wade Phillips can do. If Wade Phillips can get the best possible out of this defense, this team can make the playoffs. If not, if this move does not quite do what I think it can for this defense, then they will not make the playoffs. But it's all up to really how that defense is changed by Jalen Ramsey coming in. And, a Corbett for a first-round pick. Yeah, not a bad trade for them. It will definitely help them out. I don't necessarily know that it's a world-changing move, though. But, yeah, I did see that. James says no one can beat the Pats even with this trade. Goff is a game manager, says Mango. Minshew is the future, says Elena's dad. Dan says, honestly, the issue is the refs feel bad for cornerback, I think you're saying? CB? Who's CB? Cornerback? Feel bad for cornerbacks in general? Is that what you're saying? The Zone Breaker says basically replace the 5th rounder they got from the Ravens for Peters. Yeah. So they basically got a center and a linebacker for Peters, and then they traded those 1st and a 4th for Ramsey. So in total, they got a center, a linebacker, and Ramsey. So this does improve their team because they improve their depth. They add a center, which they lost from injury. And yeah, so overall, the Rams are a better team now than they were before. But again, is that enough for them to go over the top? All right, guys, I think that's pretty much it for the reaction, the analysis of the Ramsey trade. To restate my opinion on it, I really like it from both sides. Ramsey was not putting in the effort for the Jags. He didn't want to play for the Jags. He had some issues with the coaching and with the team in general and with the franchise, and the Jags were not going to pay a player that didn't want to pay for them. So they get 2 first-round picks and a 4th. Great trade for them. Other side of this, the flip side, the Rams get a shutdown corner, one of the best in the league for years to come, and they are a team that are heading up, trying to win that Super Bowl, while on the other side of things, the Jags are trying to rebuild, and they're trying to figure out if Minshew's the guy, if he's not the guy, trying to figure out the Nick Foles situation. Thanks, guys, for joining me here live, breaking down the Jalen Ramsey trade. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Thanks for watching. Peace out.